Have you ever walked into a garage and felt like you just stepped into a museum? Now imagine that museum has over 180 cars, more than 160 motorcycles, and takes up 122,000 square feet of hangar space near an airport. That is Jay Leno's Big Dog Garage in Burbank, California, and buried inside that ocean of supercars, vintage classics, and million-dollar exotics is something most people overlook. Trucks. Pickup trucks. Rare ones. Weird ones. Legendary ones. And today we are counting down the 25 most rare pickup trucks that have rolled through Jay Leno's garage. If you are a truck lover, buckle up. And while you are at it, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss what is coming next. And number 25, the Ford F-150 Harley-Davidson Edition. So here is the thing about Jay Leno. The man does not just collect cars for himself, he uses them to help people. Back in 2016, Leno auctioned off his Ford F-150 Harley-Davidson Edition, and the truck brought in $200,000. Every single penny went to multiple sclerosis research. Now the Harley-Davidson F-150 was not your standard truck. Ford partnered with Harley-Davidson starting in 2000 to create a premium, limited production version of the F-150 that screamed attitude. These trucks featured exclusive paint schemes, custom leather interiors stitched with Harley branding, massive chrome wheels, and a supercharged V8 under the hood in later versions. And they were meant for the kind of person who wanted their truck to feel like a lifestyle statement, not just a work vehicle. Leno's was pristine, meticulously detailed, and came with all the bells and whistles. The fact that he chose to give it away for charity rather than keep it speaks volumes about the man. But let us be honest, when you have 180 cars, parting with one for a good cause probably stings a little less. Number 24. George W. Bush's Ford F-150. Jay Leno once visited President George W. Bush's ranch in Crawford, Texas, and the centerpiece of that entire visit was not some fancy limousine or armored SUV. It was Bush's personal Ford F-150. The 43rd President of the United States was famously a truck guy, and his ranch truck was about as no-frills as it gets. This was not a Platinum Edition or a King Ranch package. This was a working truck, covered in Texas dust, used for clearing brush and hauling things around the property. Bush proudly showed Leno the truck and talked about how much he loved the simplicity of it. For a man who had access to the most advanced vehicles on the planet, including Marine One and Air Force One, his favorite ride was a basic Ford pickup. The episode was part of a season premiere celebrating American-made vehicles, and seeing the former commander-in-chief behind the wheel of his beat-up truck felt genuinely authentic. It was a reminder that sometimes the best truck is the one that just does its job without asking for attention. Number 23. The Volkswagen Type 2 Single Cab Pickup. Most people think of the VW bus as a hippie van, a symbol of the counterculture movement, but Volkswagen actually made a pickup truck version of the iconic Type 2, and Jay Leno featured one on his show. The single cab, as it was known, used the same rear-mounted air-cooled flat-4 engine as the van, but came with a flatbed instead of a passenger compartment. These were workhorses in Europe and parts of the developing world, used on farms, in factories, and for deliveries. Production ran from the early 1950s through the late 1960s for the first generation, and they are incredibly rare today in good condition, especially in the United States. Volkswagen took a platform designed for a van and turned it into a genuinely capable light-duty truck. The air-cooled design meant fewer things could go wrong, and mechanics anywhere in the world could fix it. Finding one today that has not been rusted out or simply scrapped is like finding a needle in a haystack. Number 22. The Sam Walton 1979 Ford F-150 Custom Recreation. Here is a story that perfectly captures the spirit of American trucks. Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart and at one point the richest man in America, famously drove a beat-up 1979 Ford F-150 Custom. When asked why a billionaire would drive a pickup truck, Walton replied something along the lines of, what else was he supposed to haul his dogs around in, a Rolls-Royce? Jay Leno loved that story so much that he collaborated with Walmart and Ford to create a modern recreation of Walton's iconic truck using a brand-new Ford F-150 Lightning as the base. The electric Lightning was customized to look like Walton's original red and white F-150, complete with period-correct styling cues. The truck was unveiled at the Woodward Dream Cruise in 2022 and was designed for promotional events. The contrast is poetic. Walton's original truck had an inline six-cylinder engine and a four-speed manual transmission. The Recreation runs on pure electricity with over 400 horsepower and instant torque. Same humble spirit, completely different technology. Number 21. The Tesla. Jay Leno has always been open-minded about electric vehicles, and when Tesla brought their semi-truck to his garage, he was the first person outside of the company to drive the updated version. The Tesla Semi is not your typical pickup, obviously. It is a full-on Class 8 commercial truck designed to haul up to 80,000 pounds. The Semi uses 4 independent electric motors on the rear axles, producing enough torque to accelerate even when fully loaded in ways that would make a diesel truck driver's jaw drop. Tesla claims a range of up to 500 miles on a single charge, which could fundamentally change the trucking industry. Leno was particularly impressed by the center-mounted driving position and the near-silent operation. For a man who has driven everything from a 1909 Stanley steamer to a McLaren P1, calling the Semi impressive is no small compliment. Number 20. The Earth Roamer LTI. Take a Ford F-550 Super Duty, rip out the cargo bed, and replace it with a fully self-contained luxury living space. That is the Earth Roamer LTI. And when Jay Leno got behind the wheel, he could not believe what he was experiencing. This is not really a pickup truck anymore. It is a fortress on wheels. Powered by a 6.7-liter Power-Stroke turbodiesel V8, the Earth Roamer is built for people who want to go completely off the grid without sacrificing comfort. Solar panels, lithium batteries, a full kitchen, a bathroom, and sleeping quarters for 4 people, all mounted on a chassis that can handle seriously rough terrain. Leno actually took it off-road, navigating steep grades and rocky trails. The Earth Roamer starts at around $650,000 and can climb well past $750,000 with options. It is one of those vehicles that makes you question everything you thought you knew about what a truck can be. Number 19. The Velocity Modern Classics, Ford F-250. When Velocity Modern Classics brought their restomodded 1970 Ford F-250 to Jay Leno's garage, even the man who has seen everything was impressed. This is a company that takes beat-up vintage Ford trucks and transforms them into bespoke, handcrafted masterpieces that blend old-school charm with modern engineering. The F-250 that visited Jay's garage had taken SEMA by storm before making the trip to Burbank. Under the hood sat a modern power plant mated to a smooth shifting automatic transmission, while the interior featured custom billet aluminum vents, hand-stitched leather, and air conditioning that actually works. Jay spent most of his time marveling at the build quality, running his hands over the interior details and asking about every component. For a man who employs a full team of expert coach builders, that kind of admiration is the highest compliment. Number 18. The Artec Fabrications, 1972 Chevrolet K50 Duke. Artec Fabrications out of Hayden, Idaho, does something remarkable. They take standard cab vintage Chevrolet trucks and stretch them into crew cabs, creating something that General Motors never offered from the factory. The Duke is based on a 1972 Chevrolet K50, a heavy-duty military spec chassis originally used for utility purposes. Artec built a custom four-door crew cab body on top of it, then dropped in a 5.9-liter Cummins diesel engine. The result looks like it rolled off a GM assembly line in the early 70s, but performs like a modern heavy-duty diesel. Jay Leno drove both the Duke and its sibling on the Ponderosa in the same episode, and kept pointing out how the fabrication was so seamless you would never know these trucks were not born as crew cabs. Number 17. The Artec Fabrications, 1966 Chevrolet K30 Ponderosa. The Ponderosa is the Duke's older sibling, and in many ways, it is even more impressive. Built on a 1966 Chevrolet K30 chassis cab frame, Artec converted it into a gorgeous crew cab truck with a custom bed. The Cummins diesel produces approximately 550 horsepower and a staggering 1,400 pound-feet of torque, thanks to an aftermarket turbo, Mahle pistons, and Flowmaster exhaust. Jay Leno was visibly giddy driving this thing. The combination of vintage aesthetics and modern diesel power felt both nostalgic and brutally capable. Building one takes thousands of hours of custom fabrication. Every body panel must be modified, every seam must be perfect, and mating a modern diesel drivetrain to a 60-year-old chassis is extraordinarily complex. Number 16. The Ford F-150 Lightning. When Ford CEO Jim Farley personally brought the F-150 Lightning to Jay Leno's garage, it was a signal that this truck was a very big deal. Leno was immediately struck by the silence. Getting behind the wheel with Farley riding shotgun, he marveled at how something this large could be this quiet while accelerating this hard. The Lightning produces 580 horsepower in its extended range configuration and can power your entire house during an outage. Farley revealed that Ford initially planned to build only 20,000 units per year, but scaled to 150,000 when reservations hit 200,000 in 6 months. By the end of the drive, Leno made a surprising confession. A man who had spent his entire life as a self-proclaimed car guy looked at the camera and said he was now a truck guy. Number 15. The Rivian R1T. Rivian's founder and CEO R.J. Scaringe brought both the R1T pickup and R1S SUV to Jay Leno's garage. Leno had already spent about a week driving the R1T and was genuinely impressed by charging at home and waking up to a full battery. The R1T features the gear tunnel, a pass-through storage compartment between the cab and bed that has no equivalent in the traditional truck world. Each wheel has its own electric motor, enabling a tank turn where the truck spins in place. The conversation turned philosophical, and with both men acknowledging that children born today might never experience a gasoline-powered vehicle or a manual gearbox, and that this is not necessarily a bad thing. Number 14. The GMC Hummer EV Pickup. When General Motors resurrected the Hummer name as an all-electric supertruck, Jay Leno was among the first to get behind the wheel. The Hummer EV Edition 1 tips the scales at over 9,000 pounds, making it one of the heaviest production pickup trucks ever built. Yet it can sprint from 0 to 60 in roughly 3 seconds thanks to its triple-motor setup, producing 1,000 horsepower and over 11,000 pound-feet of torque at the wheels. Leno was particularly fascinated by the crab walk feature, which allows the rear wheels to turn at the same angle as the fronts, letting this massive truck move diagonally. The Hummer EV represents a complete philosophical reversal for GM. The original Hummer was the poster child for excess fuel consumption. The new one burns no gasoline at all. Leno appreciated the irony and spent considerable time exploring the engineering that went into making something this heavy feel this agile. Number 13. The Hennessy Velociraptor. John Hennessy is a frequent guest on Jay Leno's garage, and for good reason. The man builds some of the most insane vehicles on the planet. The Velociraptor takes Ford's already extreme F-150 Raptor and pushes it into truly ludicrous territory. Depending on the variant, Hennessy has offered versions producing anywhere from 600 to over 1,000 horsepower. The modifications include upgraded superchargers, custom exhaust systems, enhanced suspension, and exterior modifications that make the already aggressive Raptor look even more menacing. Leno has featured various Hennessy creations over the years, and the Velociraptor always generates enthusiastic reactions. What makes these trucks particularly rare is the production numbers. Hennessy limits each variant to as few as 100 units worldwide, each with a numbered plaque and warranty. Number 12. The Ford F-150 Raptor R. The Raptor R represents the pinnacle of Ford's off-road truck engineering, and when program manager Tony Greco brought one to Jay Leno's garage, the resulting episode was a masterclass in modern truck design. Under the hood sits a version of the 5.2-liter supercharged V8 from the Mustang Shelby GT500, producing 700 horsepower and 640 pound-feet of torque. Greco explained to Leno that 700 horsepower was a deliberate sweet spot. The same engine makes 760 in the Shelby, but Ford tuned it differently for the truck to optimize torque delivery across the rev range for off-road use. Leno's first reaction after driving it was memorable. Horsepower can cure any problem. He was impressed by how the aluminum body saved 400 to 500 pounds over the competition, giving the Raptor R a significant power-to-weight advantage. Despite its enormous size, Leno noted the truck felt planted and controllable. Number 11. The Apocalypse Hellfire 6x6. If you think a standard pickup truck is intimidating, imagine one with 6 wheels, 6-wheel drive, and enough horsepower to terrify professional race car drivers. The Apocalypse Hellfire showed up at Jay Leno's garage and immediately became one of the most talked-about vehicles ever featured on the show. Built by Apocalypse Manufacturing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the Hellfire takes a heavy-duty truck platform and adds a third axle, creating a 6x6 configuration originally designed for military applications. The supercharged Hellcat engine produces over 700 horsepower, and the extra axle provides traction that makes it feel unstoppable off-road. Leno's reactions ranged from nervous laughter to genuine awe. The truck is absurdly large, comically powerful, and built with craftsmanship that belies its apocalyptic name. Only a handful are produced each year, making each one a genuine collector's piece. Number 10. The GM Defense Infantry Squad Vehicle. This is where things get really interesting. Jay Leno somehow managed to get his hands on the United States Army's Infantry Squad vehicle, a military truck based on the Chevrolet Colorado ZR2. In 2020, the Army awarded General Motors a $214.3 million contract to build 649 of these vehicles. The ISV uses 90% commercial off-the-shelf parts from the Colorado, but the remaining 10% is classified. Leno acknowledged there were parts they could not show on camera because of military restrictions. The engine is a 2.8-liter turbo diesel modified to run on jet fuel, producing 375 horsepower. The ISV carries a full 9-soldier infantry squad and can be sling-loaded beneath a Black Hawk helicopter. Leno called it a lot of fun to drive, probably the most casual endorsement a military vehicle has ever received. Number 9. The Tesla Cybertruck. When Elon Musk personally invited Jay Leno to drive the Cybertruck prototype, it was one of the most anticipated episodes ever. The angular stainless steel truck looked like nothing else on the road. Musk drove with Leno through the Boring Company's underground tunnel beneath Los Angeles, a passage roughly 14 feet wide that was a tight fit for the 6-foot-wide Cybertruck. When Leno asked why the truck needed to be bulletproof, Musk replied that it was badass and super cool, adding that Tesla wanted to be a leader in apocalypse technology. The Cybertruck's exoskeleton is made from ultra-hard 30X cold-rolled stainless steel, the same alloy SpaceX uses for its Starship rocket. Whether you love or hate the design, the Cybertruck is one of the most polarizing vehicles to ever appear on Jay Leno's Garage. Number 8. The 1966 Dodge Town Wagon, Power Wagon. This truck has one of the best backstories of any vehicle to appear on the show. The original owner was a rocket scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and when his daughter wanted to find the rusting Dodge a good home, she contacted Jay Leno. Leno connected her with Steve Hoffman, who transports vehicles for Leno and had been searching for one of these obscure trucks. The 1966 Town Wagon Power Wagon was classified as a station wagon, but with four-wheel drive and 3 rows of seats. It was essentially a progenitor of modern full-size SUVs. Power came from a 318 cubic inch V8, producing 200 horsepower, which Hoffman admits could barely push the heavy truck to 60 miles per hour. Most Town Wagon Power Wagons were sold to businesses and government fleets, not families, which is why so few survived. The military heritage of the Power Wagon name, first applied to civilian versions of Dodge's World War II trucks, gives this vehicle a gravitas that few trucks can match. Number 7. The 1961 Chevrolet Corvair Rampside Pickup. Most pickup trucks have the engine in the front and the bed in the back. The Corvair pickup did things completely differently. The engine sits under the bed at the rear of the chassis. This was a variant of the rear engine, our air-cooled Corvair platform, and Chevrolet offered it with a cab-forward configuration that looked nothing like any other American truck. The Flat Six produced 80 horsepower sent to the rear wheels through a 4-speed manual. What makes this model special is the ramp side feature, a fold-down ramp on one side of the bed, in addition to a traditional tailgate. Leno found his Corvair pickup less than a mile from his shop in rough condition and bought it for just $600. After a full restoration, it looks stunning. The Corvair pickup is best remembered as the truck version of the car Ralph Nader targeted in his 1965 book about automotive safety. But enthusiasts know it as one of the most unconventional pickups Detroit ever produced. Number 6. The Blastoline Special Tank Car. Technically, this might be the most insane thing with wheels that Jay Leno owns. The tank car is powered by a Continental AV1790, a 29-liter, air-cooled V12 engine originally designed for the M47 Patton tank during the Korean War. In stock form, this engine produced 810 horsepower on 80-octane gasoline. But stock was not good enough for Leno. He called his friend Gale Banks, one of the most legendary engine builders in America, and asked him to make it more powerful. Banks twin-turbocharged the engine, converted it to electronic fuel injection, and pushed the output to over 1,600 horsepower while simultaneously doubling the fuel mileage. The tank car weighs several tons and uses an Allison transmission from a Greyhound bus. When Leno says there are 2 things he wants in a car, a loud horn and huge power, the tank car delivers both in spectacular fashion. There is simply nothing else like it on the planet, and it might be the single most unique vehicle in Leno's entire collection. Number 5. The Banks Sidewinder Dakota Gale Banks appears again on our list, and this time it is for creating the world's fastest pickup truck. The Banks Sidewinder started life as a humble Dodge Dakota, but after Banks and his team got through with it, it held the FIA record for the world's fastest pickup truck, averaging 217 miles per hour in a 2-way run. That is not a typo. A pickup truck. 217 miles per hour. The Sidewinder used a modified Cummins diesel engine that was turbocharged to the point of absurdity, producing enough power to propel what is essentially a box on wheels to speeds that most sports cars can only dream about. Jay Leno featured the Sidewinder on his show, and his reaction was a combination of disbelief and pure joy. Banks is a regular collaborator with Leno, having worked on several vehicles in the comedian's collection, and the Sidewinder represents the absolute pinnacle of what happens when a brilliant engineer decides that the laws of physics are merely suggestions. Number 4. The 1942 Dodge Power Wagon 6x6. When Winslow Bent of Legacy Classic Trucks brought his custom 1942 Dodge Power Wagon 6x6 to Jay Leno's garage, it was unlike anything the show had featured. The frame, axles, and running gear came from an actual WC-63 Dodge that served in the European theater during World War II. After the war, the truck was shipped to Norway before making its way to the United States. Bent took a newer Power Wagon cab and modified it to fit the military frame, built a custom cargo bed, and installed a modern 3.9-liter Cummins turbo diesel mated to a 4-speed manual that powers all 3 axles. Rolling on 37-inch Toyo mud tires, this truck weighs about 8,000 pounds, and as Leno pointed out, the metal is so thick it cannot rust. At around $200,000, the Legacy Power Wagon is a reminder that some trucks are built to survive absolutely anything. Number 3. The 1968 Ford Bronco with Shelby GT 500 engine. The story behind this truck is pure Hollywood. On the eve of Jay Leno's last taping of The Tonight Show in 2014, fellow late-night host Craig Ferguson arranged to have his beat-up, non-running 1968 Ford Bronco towed into Leno's parking spot as a joke. Ferguson had no idea how valuable vintage Broncos had become. Leno happily accepted the gift, and the truck sat in his garage for 5 years before Ford Performance and the SEMA garage team decided to bring it back to life in spectacular fashion. They installed the 5.2-liter supercharged V8 from the 2020 Mustang Shelby GT 500, the most powerful engine Ford has ever built, producing 760 horsepower. The restoration took months and included a custom chassis, 5-speed manual transmission, heavy-duty 4-wheel drive system, and Willwood brakes. When Ferguson returned to see the finished product, his reaction was priceless. The Bronco that started as a joke became one of the rarest and most powerful vintage trucks in existence, and Leno jokes that refusing air conditioning for 100 more horsepower is simply the brave man's choice. Number 2. The 1916 Autocar coal truck. This is one of the oldest operational trucks you will ever see on a public road, and Jay Leno drives it through the streets of Los Angeles like it is a completely normal thing to do. The 1916 Autocar was built to deliver coal to homes and businesses, and it represents a time when the automobile industry was still figuring out what a truck should be. It has no battery, none, just a magneto for ignition. The lights are acetylene. You start it with a hand crank. It rolls on wooden wheels with solid vulcanized rubber tires, and the rear tires have holes drilled in them for metal spikes for winter driving. Leno says these are the original century-old tires. The engine is a 2-cylinder boxer of unknown displacement producing 18 horsepower, enough to haul 2.5 tons of coal at a top speed of about 25 miles per hour. Autocar, founded in Pennsylvania in 1897, is one of the oldest vehicle manufacturers in existence and is still building commercial trucks today. Leno describes driving this truck as calming because of its smooth ride, relaxed pace, and the simplicity of an era when machines were built to work 16 to 18 hours a day without complaint. Number 1. The 1934 Ford pickup truck. And here we are. Number 1. The truck that started it all. Before Jay Leno was a comedian, before he was a talk show host, before he had a garage full of McLarens and Duesenbergs, he was a 14-year-old kid in Andover, Massachusetts, with $350 and a dream. His father found a non-running 1934 Ford pickup truck sitting at an abandoned gas station in Reading, Massachusetts, and they bought it on the spot. The truck was in terrible shape. It did not run. It needed everything. But young Jay spent the next 2 years of his life learning how to fix it, working on it with his own hands, bringing it back to life. When he finally got his driver's license, that truck was his freedom, his independence, his first taste of what cars could mean to a person. There is even a story about Leno sitting in class one day when it started to rain. His truck's window was broken because he had slammed the door too hard and could not afford to replace the glass. He had put all his money into the upholstery. He sat there watching the rain, knowing his work was getting ruined. Then 2 people pulled up with a tarp and covered the cab. It was his parents. They knew how much that truck meant to their son. Leno eventually traded the '34 Ford for a Datsun 1600 sports car, a decision he has said he regrets to this day. That original truck, the one that sparked a lifelong passion for cars and led to one of the greatest automotive collections ever assembled, is the one vehicle Jay Leno would love to have back in his garage. It is not the most expensive. It is not the fastest. It is not the most technologically advanced, but it is the most important truck in Jay Leno's garage, because without it, there might not be a garage at all. And there you have it. 25 rare pickup trucks that have earned a place in Jay Leno's garage, from military machines and electric revolutionaries to vintage workhorses and the one beat-up Ford that started an empire. Which of these trucks surprised you the most? And if you could add any truck to Jay's collection, what would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this ride through automotive history, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you do not miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.